We are now recording. So it is lovely to see you, Helen.
Oh, thank you.
How are you?
Good to see you. Yes, I'm really well, thank you. Really well. Feeling refreshed actually, because I've just had a little bit of downtime, a little bit of self-care, and a little bit of leisure. And I've been out walking in the cool of the evenings because it's been very hot, but getting outside with all the nature that surrounds us here, which we're so lucky to have. It's certainly boosted my energy and just put me back with nature where I belong.
How's Dan? How's Dan?
Oh, Dan, he's fine, thank you. He's doing really well because there's a lot less demands on him at the moment, especially with the morning routines. So he's getting lots of sleep and lots of rest because he's going to bed when he wants to. And that means he's having a real good sleep, and he starts his day refreshed and in a positive mood because there's no anxiety around transportation across to school, and then the somewhat rushed agenda that these special schools have, you know, because of the attention and the needs of every classmate and peer that he has. So he's doing just good, thank you.
And how are you feeling about going back to face-to-face? Where's your thoughts on what's happening at the moment?
Yeah, lots and lots of thoughts at the moment. I have to be aware that media is reporting the conflict now between the government policies and driving us out of this on an economic level by reopening and socialising at a distance, but also it's moving away from the science. And this is a brand new threat that we don't fully understand how it manifests in people and these so-called super spreaders. So the danger is still there. I have already purchased some face masks, some sort of washable ones, which have arrived over the last few days, because I'm sort of aware that there might be compulsory wearing of these face masks in our communities, in our settings, public transport. In fact, I think actually just today they said it's going to be mandatory on public transport, which is, that's buses, double-decker buses, trains, anything. Is it going to be aircraft? I know the aircraft were doing it, but that's also got to be taught to my son. So it's, and to us all really, isn't it? You know, we have to recognise that when we go back out into the community and re-engage what we are used to, that actually people are going to look different. And certainly with learning disabilities, especially autism, reading a person's face is difficult anyway, let alone having the mask on and actually the smile taken away. So my thoughts are that we've still got a little bit more time to actually plan what the future is going to look like and what our requirements are going to be, what we have to comply with, how we, increase our hygiene and how that's done. So we've got all that learning to be done first, and it needs to be good, clear, explicit direction from the government at the moment. I know it's, I know they look back on, last time this happened, we did this. And I know that's not there on this occasion, but equally, we have to be, we've got a duty to keep people safe, ourselves safe, and our families safe.
Yeah. I started this week looking at what the return to work guidance could look like for therapeutic professionals. And trying to get a baseline from the government and the health side as to what that would look like in close proximity work.
Yeah.
It's a minefield trying to find a single path.
I am sure.
So it's going to kind of slow down the work that we're doing within APA to produce that, which in fairness, I wasn't expecting. I thought it would be quite straightforward, quite simple, close proximity, here is the guidance. But that hasn't yet come into play publicly. So it's really hard then to gauge what is the science that's being used to back up the advice. So we are working on it.
Yeah. So go on,
sorry, I've actually gone. I've got quite a large room. So,
yes.
and there's more than, if you like, 1.5 meters, 2 meters between me and my clients. So there was approximately 4 individuals, I think, that I actually see in my room now. And we have set in certain boundaries. So if it's a new person, I talk it through on the phone in relation to making sure they understand. My usual way would be offering a hand or a handshake as they come up the stairs, and not doing that now. Allowing me to have the door open so that they can go in, because there's room across the corridor that I can stand and wait.
Yeah.
Same thing on the way out, so I'm the one that opens the door and lets them out. So
yes,
and they've all been incredibly appreciative and grateful, but they're all ones that we have agreed that they divulge to me what they're doing in relation to their social distancing as well. So they're only literally going from their house into the therapy room and their house and to the shop if they need something, as in so we have a very strict agreement that we share if there's been a change made. And because my room's as large as it is, which I am pretty fortunate on that one, I feel very comfortable about doing what I'm doing, but the majority of mine are still very much online. And I'm quite glad that it's a slow kind of integration back into doing some face-to-face, but with all the boundaries in place.
Yeah.
I think it's about walking that pathway.
It's common sense. A lot of it is common sense, because listening to the government, you're not getting any common sense or any explanation or
allegedly.
You're just getting contradictions after contradictions after and I mean, I don't go anywhere other than home, or I'm still very much locked down on my personal level.
Yes.
I'm quite comfortable to keep on doing that. I think
and I'm still handcuffed to a radiator with biscuits while I produce product for
so exaggerates.
You're always finding work for him, aren't you, Bonnie?
I've got an idea. 72 hours.
I know. It's great ideas. It's like, let's just get them out, share them, and the neural pathways.
And one of the things that I think we've kind of worked on with what Vonnie's doing and kind of testing out that return to work process is that the process for Vonnie's operation.
Oh, I forgot something. Sorry, I forgot. I have 2 exits. I have a back exit in my building, and I have a front exit in which they come in the front and they go out. So
Yeah.
So it's so there's a real sense. And I'm overtly conscious of on 10-2. So 10-2, whereas normally I'd be quite comfortable if I went up to 55 minutes. And consciously setting in that boundary that is dead on 50, they go out the back, next one comes in. I might include that as well, because it's an balance. Clients don't meet at all.
That's right, yes.
No risk of a 10-minute gap. So it's actually working.
It is
really
working quite well, and it's very much a dynamic for that working environment. And by walking that process and making sure that as a client, what's that process like? How does it fit? How does it in practice? Is a lot better than going, well, this is the process and we'll work with it as we go. Make sure that whatever practices are put in place, the professional has already gone through those as a client would. And does it work? Does it impede on the actual work that's being done? Because sometimes that added consideration of, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. The anxiety before even getting into the room could have gone up.
Well, it's important to appreciate that. I mean, the way that I work is that obviously for most clients, they are coming with historical stuff, you know, stuff that's happened to them, that's affected them, that they're in therapy to process. And I've always had this agreement, whether or not COVID is here or not, my agreement has been with any client in any way that I do not dictate the route of the therapy appointments. So yes, they may well have underlying stuff that we need at some point to get back to, but if they're really anxious about what's going on with the coronavirus, there's absolutely no point in overloading them with going down, you can't see my hands, going down that route as well as dealing with this route and trying to deal with both. So I've got a very, very clear recognition within myself, but also a boundary with them that they can come in and talk about whatever they want, because I know that they're avoiding or filling up the room with things that are an avoidance, and I will pick up on that and challenge that. But at the same time, I'm extremely conscious of people's anxiety just with dealing with this at the moment.
That flexibility of response.
And it really applies to medical professions in particular. You know, if they've come for therapy in relation to historical trauma, that they're having patients that are dying, or, you know, and not that at the moment, but if they did, I've always had the agreement, if you have a problem in work and that has affected you, please know that this space is there for that as well. You know, because it's not our place to dictate what is going on in that room.
No, absolutely.
Yes.
And it is about allowing that space just to hold, isn't it? Hold that here and now moment, whatever they bring, with that ongoing sort of objective and that ongoing exploration, which we know the history, and making sense of that, but actually just in that here and now. And of course, with anything, when there is new behaviours to apply, you know, we are becoming more mindful in our approach out in the community as well, and that takes some energy as well to actually be conscious of what we're actually doing and controlling that. And then if we make an error, again the anxiety comes up. It's like, well, I know I'm anxious about coronavirus and the other things in the client's life, but actually to suddenly at the end of the session just stand up but get too close to you, for example, can, you know, create an instant sort of terror for the client, and sort of the reaction of you, Bonnie, you know, as the therapist as well. So any new behaviours take practice, implementation, opportunity to execute, everything like that. And every day is going to be a new day. Every transaction we do, going to the bank, putting a PIN number in, getting the hair off the face, and just things like that, you know, it's going to be everywhere at the moment. So again, guided by the science, keep washing our hands, have the hand sanitizer. And certainly for me as well, where I'm using virtual reality in my therapeutic work for mindfulness and for coping strategies, and that's a physical headset which has got hair, you know, which comes into contact with the client's hair, skin and everything. So we've got some protocols on how best to keep the equipment sterile, hygienic, without damaging the equipment. Is again, we just have to be mindful of. But it's all new approaches to managing, first of all, the invisible potential germ in the room. You know, it's huge.
It's that invisible unknown. You know, is it even there? Is it something that, you know, we need to be conscious of in that moment rather than...
And so many people come to us in relation to feelings of rejection. So, you know, just that, as you say, God forbid, somebody gets up and they come too close. It's almost like being really conscious that you're actually trying to look after them as well as you, but you don't want that to turn
Yes.
into a
Yeah.
sense of rejection.
That's right.
Anything,
Yeah.
it's caring,
Yeah.
it's not rejection.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, and of course that would just trigger all that core schema of like, oh, last time I went for to hug someone and was pushed off, it meant this, and we're just sort of reinforcing that, which obviously is incorrect, not irrational, because it's true, but then that might lead to that cycle of negative thinking, mightn't it? That oh, the world is a dangerous place, nobody can be trusted. And then it can be internalized and processed, with impairment and disturbance. So it's absolutely huge changes to how we operate face to face, keeping ourselves safe, the client safe, and actually trying to, still ensure that therapeutic objective is met, and that the therapeutic change is occurring. I mean, there's so much barriers around opportunities to apply change at the moment, which can only sort of delay that objective. But,
it's also giving me a great opportunity, and I must admit I am enjoying this, where clients don't necessarily appreciate their positives, which is part of the reason that they're in therapy, and yet they've taken such good care of themselves in relation to their self-worth and their recognition of their own intelligence to avoid being in contact with other people, to protect themselves, but also others. It's giving me the fantastic opportunity to, if you like, challenge the recognition of their ability to survive a world pandemic and what's actually behind their ability to survive that pandemic, by looking after themselves, by showing that self-worth, by distancing, and actually using the opportunity when somebody says, well, I suppose, if you like, I suppose I'm doing okay. Well, actually, no, you're not supposed. You are alive, you are doing well, you have survived, and actually, what do you think it's taking you to do that? What is it that's making you
right. Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
the opportunity. I mean, that's the way I work. There's nothing that I can't log on to in somebody's performance or reaction that I can't find a positive that they're not seeing. So it's like just that ability to survive and that desire to survive, and what that actually means to them. You challenge them with thinking about their recognition of their desire to survive.
I like it.
Yeah, powerful.
The connectivity that is available to do that is phenomenal. I wanted to ask you a question, because I know that you work with VR and the whole headset setting and kit and everything else. How have you found that? Is that something that you're actually seeing massive potential with, as a lot of companies would like us to kind of promote VR a lot more?
Sorry, Dave, I missed that a little bit. So am I finding that people are interested?
Well, one, as the professional, are you enjoying using VR? Are you seeing a potential for how that can be used and can be developed? Because we're being kind of almost promoted to drive towards VR work.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious, as to someone that's using it, how do they feel about VR?
Sure. So I had really bad timing with my virtual reality, because by the time I launched it in the charity where I do paid and voluntary work at the MS Centre, I had an informal lunch where I can discuss it and trial it. The following Monday, the centre was closed because of COVID. So it's only partially out there. So how I have spent my time in the absence of clients is attending all the webinars, the training webinars on how to use it, printing out the manuals to support it, and just actually recognising how the virtual reality itself and the environment we bring into the work matches the client's objective. So I'm starting off with mindfulness and as a coping strategy for anxiety and stress and worry. And depression, because the NICE guidelines say mindfulness is a good way of dealing with depression. So all I'm looking at the virtual reality offering is the visual environment to maximize that immersion into the mindfulness. There's so many distractions. Some people are not fully engaged in mindfulness practice. Some of them don't truly understand it. And I do work with people on the autism spectrum as well. And sometimes some are incredibly visual and imaginative and creative, and others are not. So I wanted to bring this to that particular client group that I work with initially. But the purpose of using the virtual reality was to teach them how to apply mindfulness at a time or a trigger of anxiety or a time of stress, whether that trigger is an expected trigger or an unexpected trigger. So it's a coping strategy, along with a lot of other objectives that can be met. So getting them to understand people's expectations, what's expected of them, communication, improving communication, but certainly the mindfulness. They can choose a variety of arenas such as the beach, the island, under the sea. Certainly a lot of people I know with autism like submersion in water. So there's a lovely 360-degree, so all around them, and they can almost imagine and feel that temporarily it's not real, but they are under the water. And also with ADHD, we can reduce anxiety and overwhelm, and focus in and pay attention to certain games that are used through the platform as well. So for example, under the sea, there would be like a couple of seals, and then we've got to focus and sort of point like a heat map to the seal, and then we'd have to find sort of like some sharks and then dolphins, and it's paying attention. So for that time being, any cortisol levels, any adrenaline that they've got in their body because they were a crisis or through their stress and anxiety, then they're actually calming their bodies. Hopefully for some, not all, and certainly as we build up and they become more and more familiar and use it, then they might actually be able to close their eyes and remember that away from therapy. And of course that's always our goal, really, isn't it, is to empower our clients so that they can draw upon the tools to support themselves at a crisis and apply them at that moment in time of need. So there's lots of environments for mindfulness, and also there's a beach environment, and it starts off looking down on a beach and sort of walking down a path. And this is particularly interesting because, again, I work with some people who have mobility issues and actually can't walk on a beach, and sometimes would avoid that because it's too stressful. But they can choose that as a virtual environment, and then I can even like add like a sand tray or something for their feet if they've got the feeling in their feet, so make it a much more pleasurable experience. And the therapeutic objective is going to be giving them some respite from their condition, giving them a virtual trip to the beach. But if it invokes positive thoughts, positive emotions, even recall memories, depending on their cognitive function, but if they can recall a positive memory and they feel well, even if it's just, you know, for a few hours, it's something, and it's something novel, something unusual, but it's something that is going to be available, something for them that they can access.
Yeah.
The other purpose of the virtual reality is exposure therapy. So rather than if a client came to me and said they're not depressed, they're not stressed, they're not anxious, but they've got this fear of small spaces like claustrophobia, for example, and they have to go for an MRI scan, for example, and they were really frightened because they don't know what to expect and they don't like being in that such an enclosed environment. Again, without having to be on antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs, they can still access me, and together, if that is the objective, is to familiarize a setting, then the virtual reality platforms offer that. So it's a gradual exposure to actually what will be taking place to prevent the anxiety, to reduce that worry in the lead up to the appointment. And it's the same with needles and sort of injections or taking blood. So there's many environments that I think the actual technology and the company that I'm working with and who I am a customer of are absolutely fantastic and so innovative. And I just think it's amazing. I do. What I lack now is actually the physical clients
to be able
to
get the other head.
Yes.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I really felt my reaction when you mentioned sharks. Now, I watched Jaws way too young, and as you were saying, I felt myself smile the moment you mentioned sharks.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, when I used to go on holidays with my son for 3 to 4 weeks of the year, that was our time together.
Yeah.
To take him abroad as far away from England as I could possibly get. And one of the trips that we went on when he was approximately 10 was snorkeling in deep sea. And my fear of sharks would have me, and I can remember the nightmare. It was a repetitive nightmare. The night before we'd be going on this trip, of this shark that would appear near the boats, and me trying to get him on the boat before the shark takes me by my feet. And I've never forgot it because it was so vivid.
Yeah.
So when you the minute you said sharks, I started to smile because I thought, in no visual interaction, whether or not it's film or otherwise, my reaction to sharks is in there, get a shark out. Any kind of sharks.
And they do have a platform for fear of like pigeons, spiders. There's not one for snakes. I think there's one for cats. Is it cats and dogs? There's certain environments to exposure therapy, not, you know, a safe, non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical intervention. And the homework, then the client can go and do homework with support and try, you know, to sort of potentially not cross the road because that white cat's always on that pavement, you know, but just sort of walk past. So it's desensitization, and along with you know, learning that mindfulness strategy as that coping mechanism, and to apply that will all sort of build that resilience. But I'm afraid there isn't one of sharks. Certainly no shark cages, certainly no great white sharks. And they are animated for the children in that environment.
Well, what it also made me think, and it's a very serious question. Let's just say, and I've had a situation that isn't the example I'm going to give, but it's very similar. If you like exposure therapy, and there was one for sharks, and somebody grew the confidence of swimming with sharks, and then God forbid they took that confidence into the open sea and they were attacked by a shark. And it makes me wonder what it would be like for any therapist at all to assist someone to the point where they've got the confidence. And that's what I'm talking about. I have worked with somebody that their confidence increased massively. And unfortunately, where that confidence took them to, ironically, through nobody's fault at all, resulted in a death, a literal death, which obviously affected me enormously. But I sort of wondered if there was that visual dynamic, and God forbid it was sharks, what would it be like if your client ended up getting in the water through that exposure therapy, ends up dying, the impact on you on the journey would be hard, wouldn't it? It would be, I know certainly for me, increasing somebody's or helping somebody with their confidence that led them to do certain things that were really things that unfortunately result in their death. Absolutely. The work I had to do with my supervisor to actually let go of that and almost let go of an irrational, almost guilt for helping them work on their confidence, which led to their ultimate death through pure circumstances. And I'd be thinking, Jesus, what would it be like if that was a VR instrument and it was in that way and to feel? And then you saw on national news your client being eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to laugh because I'm giving a funny
No,
there's a real serious undertone.
there certainly is, and there's an environment on virtual reality, which is if someone's got a fear of heights. So first of all, what I would need to establish is to assess my client and actually work out how this phobia is actually impairing their life. Now, if they've just got a new job that they're very excited about, which means they meet their criteria and are on the 60th floor of a high-rise building with all windows everywhere, then it might be the exposure therapy through virtual reality would probably be quite appropriate for them. It's always working out what's in it for them. Some people with like the spider phobias probably, and this is only a hypothetical situation, it's certainly not happened, but say for example they can't even go to the shed to get what they really need out because they know there's a big spider that they saw a couple of days ago they haven't seen before. That would impair them to continue to do their potentially weekly jobs, daily jobs within the household, you know, within that family, and that's sort of more appropriate. So it's actually weighing up what the goal is. But you're absolutely right. If somebody's was overcome their phobia of spiders and then perhaps went somewhere on holiday to like Australia and was like, oh, let's a little spider, I'll just pick it up, you know, and got bitten and died, then yes, that would be very interesting how I would feel, because I would feel that I've contributed to their choice to overcome a phobia and deal with that situation. So be quite rational and I would recognise that I was not present and I was not part of a risk assessment. They would only be engaging in that because they have chosen to do that for whatever reason. I think I'd have that boundary. I think I would feel grief and sadness because a client had done it. Yes, I would question if it was good. I would then probably expect some sort of backlash and probably frontline headline on the front page of a newspaper, like, you know, virtual reality, you know, did this but ended up with that, as a potential danger and as a possible negative for the actual promotion of artificial intelligence and virtual reality in addressing phobias. So yes, I'm not saying it hasn't already happened through VR or through anyone else, but also it can, and it is a possibility, but it does depend on the client and, you know, obviously their outcome, what they want to achieve. But great question, real great question.
I think it's one of those things where it's the unknown and the multiple variables that come from the unknown. You know, giving somebody the confidence to cope with spiders being a really good example. And they get into an environment on holiday where they're now comfortable with spiders. And I'm just going to brush this little spider away. That spider bites. And that's, they've got the confidence not to be afraid of the spider.
That's it.
But that confidence now overrides the rational location that they're in.
Yeah.
It might not even be that. It might just be. It
So
might just be.
the thing is, I'm trying
one of those things that you can see.
Yeah, I'm trying to just finish up the garden, and I just need some decorative I can't get anywhere.
Combination forward, but I think it's one of those topics where it is going to be part of the future.
I absolutely agree. I just want to say I'm aware of some background noise now. Can you hear the background noise? Because I've got this in. Oh, you can.
Yeah.
You can hear all the.
I thought it was here. I was just about to try and work out if it was you or here.
No, I'm just aware now because I got some movement downstairs. So I'm quite happy to use a different device and go upstairs if you would just give me a couple of moments.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. No, I try to focus on my big spiders are not my thing. And I tried it by one of those holidays with my son, and we went into the jungle, and these webs were something like 6 foot wide, spiders that were that big,
Yeah.
and I failed.
What's the cake?
I did what I needed to do, which was go past the web or under the web, so I was capable of doing that.
Wow.
If I say thing, that shows you my feelings about those things called spiders. That spider jumped on the floor. I kid you not, my feet would have gone so fast out of wherever I was. And now I've learned to recognise what it is.
But you have no issues eating the face.
I did discover when I was a baby in my cot, one of my brothers tried to amuse himself by putting in a big plastic spider into my cot with me. But also I've learned that it's more than that. I think it's the lack of predictability.
Okay.
And I've recognised in my history, there's been things that weren't predictable and not, should we say, normal behaviour by other people, which resulted in a fear of the unpredictable. When I've learned now to focus much more on the moment rather than on what might or might not happen. But
absolutely.
Spiders.
Yeah.
My son has not inherited this, so he or as Dave's here, I'll ask Dave. So you can always tell if there's a spider in the house because my son will come in and say, by the way, I just want you to know, and he did this literally 2 days ago, I kid you not. He said, you know that there's there's a hole in the cellar, that we've got a top for the cellar, like a bit. He said, there's a hole and there's a big spider that comes out of that, Mum. So I just thought I'd let you know that it's there.
She won't go past it without looking.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Very much
So we can go wherever your heart desires.
No.
And then the question is when he says, it's gone now, but I don't know where.
I have learned to go, I'm not going to look. And even if I do see it, I'm not going to react to it. I'm not going to react. And I'm getting better. If you ask me to put one on my hand, that might be a toy. But I've gotten the capacity of being able to see them physically now. And if you like, because there was one on the ceiling last week, wasn't there? Yeah. And that was about that big. And I consciously walked past it, looked at it, and just I was actually so proud of myself.
And then came screaming, saying, "Will somebody get that spider out of it?"
But it's interesting. For me, it's interesting when things like spiders, and you think of the lack of predictability. So when they run, they are moving so fast, and you have no idea where they're going to go. And I don't know if I'm crazy here or not when I say this out loud, Helen. But I believe that even animals, and like I said, I could be completely wrong, that even insects can pick up on fear. And I say this only because of one big memory where there was a spider right on the other side of the room. And I saw it, this was when I was at my worst stage. So I jumped onto a seat to get my feet off the floor and thought, I can't stay here forever. So I ran across to the sofa, and the buggering thing jumped on the floor, ran across the sofa, climbed up the side of the end of the sofa. So where David, this was not this sofa, but if David was sitting there, I was there, and I saw this spider come up over towards me. And at that
probably wanted
point,
to find out what you were scared of.
No, at that point, I almost convinced myself that they must instinctively feel fear. And I don't actually believe that. But I do question it. I do actually question it, because it was just too bizarre that this thing actually chased me across the room and up on the sofa towards me. I was in a state of panic. I don't think I've ever been with that. That took me out of the room. Literally out of the room and away from it. And something else did get that spider out.
And it's that boundary, isn't it, as to what is fear and what is a threat.
Yes.
You know, if the spider, or you know, it felt the threat, it would still perform like that fight or flight and escapism.
Yes, and on this one, I'm very comfortable as a therapist to own my one minor fear of spiders. I think, well, you know what?
If that's all you're scared of in the world.
Yeah,
disclosure, personal disclosure.
Yeah, yes. But I'll tell you what, when I went to Australia, I felt very, very, very conscious, but I still forced myself to do things where there could have been spiders anywhere around me, and I refused to allow my fear to actually stop me from doing what I needed to do. So I am quite, it's more seeing it. I'm beginning to sound like I'm entering into a therapy session with you and looking for you to help me out of this.
Moving on.
Yeah, I'm suddenly realising I'm always beginning to sound like the crying.
Watching this, welcome to the internal therapy session with Helen. Absolutely fabulous day today. Moving on. As you know, this week we launched the post-trauma care response package for the NHS and care professionals, and we already know that has already gone to the office of the head of mental health within the NHS. We know that is starting now to go to NHS trusts across the country, and as all of our members were party to that inception and the overall product, if product's probably not the right word, but the overall project. What are your thoughts about APA's move to make that collaboration project open to absolutely everybody across the sector?
When you say everybody who has a salary is on payroll from the NHS?
Or the fact that we opened up the project as a collaboration to therapeutic professionals, irrespective of membership body, first off.
But they have to follow, because this was my boundary about this particular project, they have to be disciplined, and their boundary is not in relation to, if you like, any of the organisations out there. It's in relation to...
Not talking about the people that... I'm talking about the development of the project and the collaborative nature of that. The idea that as a membership body, we can put a special project together and invite collaboration from professionals right across the sector. As an APA member, how do you feel that that's a positive move forward for the sector? Do you think that's something that now we've done it, we shouldn't do it? What are your thoughts?
I like the idea, and I think that yes, we have to go out and we have to push and we have to say, look, this is what is on offer, this is how we're going to deliver it, and this is who is going to deliver it. I think everything is about collaboration, not competition, and that's certainly my values as well, is working as a team within that body. I think you sort of stand out from the crowd a little bit and just saying, this is us, this is what we're offering, and if you can get the therapists on board and increase the volume of that, then I think it can only be a good thing. How it's going to be evaluated and reviewed and actually delivered, I mean, we just need to sort of see that, we need to be that, we need to deliver and do and take that action. But at the end of the day, it's a project, you've created this project for an intent to support, because projected, we know what's out there. And actually, even deeper than that, there's a trauma with the coronavirus and the mental health of the care workers. There's also that existential angst, state of the planet, state of what's going on in the world, state of China, everything else is going to be factored in there. So I think having a variety of different disciplines and therapists to deliver the project is fantastic. The fact that you are opening up to everyone is unusual. Normally it'd be limited, wouldn't it? It would be sort of exclusive and limited. So again, that's a great progression into the business model, but also the helping and actually that support as well.
Yeah, so that's why we put that if it's going to be delivered, which hopefully it will be, we deliberately put in something within the project that actually stipulates that anybody that signs up to deliver therapy is actually governed by the HPCP rather than a membership organisation.
Yeah, so
because
they're signing
obviously
up to the NHS's model of complaint handling, etc.
Because we can't basically...
We wouldn't be able to manage the sheer numbers that are needed, but I don't think any membership body in the UK would be either. But the NHS, the one thing that is absolutely clear, the number of professional therapists engaged with the NHS hasn't been enough to cope with the demands pre-C19. And therefore services have always been overstretched, and waiting lists off the chart, and effectiveness of that and the pressure that that has then put on those professionals has caused more burnout than in any other connected part of the NHS. That's not burnout within the NHS, that's burnout in sectors connected to it.
Yeah. And there is a lot of burnout, like you absolutely, you know, I'm with you on that. And I do move around in different sort of groups where I pick up and I hear, you know, these mental health workers who have struggled last year in 2019 and then again in 2018 because of the constraints and the lack of investment in funding and a time of austerity as well, and yet the increased need at a time of austerity for these people's you know, the public's mental health anyway. So it's already there, and it's just about to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, isn't it?
And that's what we were kind of concerned of, is that the numbers of professionals that are available compared to the number of professionals that can engage with the NHS are
in relation to the current systems, and because of how those current systems are set up and designed.
There's a bottleneck, and that bottleneck creates the environment of that stress and everything else. And if we can take the bottleneck off and have a platform where someone that is qualified is seen as qualified and then can engage based on the need that the NHS has, so that only be working with those that meet their level of experience. That's got to be a better system than what we have with, for example, just take one platform, look at CAMS, who have some amazing professionals, but they are working a 35 to a 39-hour week, when every guideline says that that's too much, and yet that's the contract. So if you want to work for CAMS, then you sign up to break that ethical boundary on hours. And the burnout is off the chart. So the work that's being done can never be as effective if they had the numbers available to work with within the constraints of ethical working hours. Now apply that to the 90,000 plus NHS professionals. That's just NHS. When you add on the 30,000 plus care workers that have been involved in this, we're talking a huge number that has never been included in the response to mental health. That we, as a nation, we've almost gone, there aren't enough professionals, so this is what we've got, when actually we've got that bottleneck on that says there's not enough. We'll take the bottleneck off, because there is, and let's start working smarter rather than these conduits and these funnels.
And that's
something that is accessible to the individual rather than management saying, you can have this on Monday and it's going to last for 12 weeks, but you can't have it after those 12 weeks. But the cut-off time, that's the cut-off time. So if you come at 11 and a half weeks, you're only going to have a half week of support. That's something that we've got to avoid the NHS falling into that trap.
Absolutely. So two things that this brings up for me, first of all, is that if somebody has a physical injury and they come out of plaster or something, they then get referred to physiotherapy on the NHS, and they have a waiting list. As always, they will get seen, they will get assessed, and they will get tools and techniques and exercises to do at home with a sheet of paper. Yet some of those people will just complain about that when there are lots of private physiotherapists out there already. And I do think it's the same with counselling and mental health services. There is private practitioners out there that can be accessed. Some of us are doing voluntary work because we don't have enough income, and yet some people are stuck with the belief that if they have anxiety, depression, then it must be a medical thing, therefore must go through a GP to be referred on to something under the umbrella of the NHS, who then have to apply that policy in accordance with the NICE guidelines. So we're all a bit stuck. So it's actually raising an awareness of actually what therapists do, who they are, and how they deliver a variety of approaches in their psychotherapeutic work. However, whoops, my cat. However, we as counsellors, we don't have a degree in psychology. We don't become an expert in the psychological models and then just apply it as a treatment plan. As counsellors, we're much more. We have a diploma, we have a degree in building relationships with a diverse number of people and a diverse number of clients. That's our goal. You know, let's engage, let's build that relationship up. Let's be congruent, let's be genuine, a little bit of personal disclosure, let's trial and error, but let's be non-judgmental and empathic. That's where we are qualified. And on a very human-to-human connectivity level, that's so kind and that's enriching as an experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And we have put together what somebody should be looking for if they reach out for a therapist, and be sure that they've got that baseline knowledge of what to ask for, that they have got a level 4 diploma in counselling psychotherapy or above, that they have got insurance in place, they have got a supervisor in place. If those 3 things are not in that first set of questions that somebody has when they come to a therapist, then in my mind, the therapist should be offering that information and making sure that we're, as a sector, that is in place.
Well, I think also one of the most important things is I think every therapist ought to be able to be in a position where they can communicate directly with that client before the first appointment, so that instinctively the client gets a feel for that therapist and how they respond. Because I know in my own history looking for a therapist, and actually it's gotten harder and harder for me, because I know all the good ones I really know. I don't mean that there's lots out there that are good that I don't know, but I haven't met them yet. And the problem is I'll meet them and probably introduce them to APA and I won't be able to use them myself. So I'm really conscious of that. But what I've learned is that you can ring 40 therapists, and I've done this exercise, I tested this out, 40 therapists, where basically it was answer machine after answer machine after answering machine after answering machine. And unfortunately for me, I genuinely believe, because I do have a PA, it's worth 1 appointment in cost for me to have a remote PA, which means that person instantaneously answers the phone, they take the message, and I can get back to that client, whether or not it's within an hour or not, even if it's because I'm busy, just to be able to say, I've got your message and I can call you back later. And that's the business side. And I think responding to a client in as quickly as possible when they've left a message is a real response to not reenacting rejection and abandonment when the clients are not responded to, which obviously can really make them feel like that. And for me, having an answer machine, I know it's a great asset, but I advocate for a PA left, right and centre, because like I said, it costs me 1 appointment per month just to have somebody at the end of a phone taking my landline calls. And I think it also reflects a good level of professionalism in my organisation, because there is somebody there. you know, and partly it's my own dislike. I dislike leaving messages on answering machines. I'll do it if it's a colleague or a peer, but if I was a client ringing up about needing to see a therapist for sexual abuse, for example, I'm not going to leave that message on an answering machine, because I just don't know who it is that's going to pick that message up. So for me, I mean, I try and incorporate the business side of it as well to look at the psychological impact for a client. And actually ringing 40 therapists, you'd be pretty disheartened at the end of all that if you don't even get the calls back. And unfortunately, the 40 that I called, I think one person called me back about 3 days later.
That's not good. That's not good.
And that's why I feel so strongly about what APA creates, because it's not just about the individual therapist and the direct work that somebody does with a client. It's also how they use their business strategy in relation to looking after those clients on that first contact. Because
and you're absolutely right, because we are qualified professionals and we charge a fee for our service. Why should we not? You know, this is what we've trained for, this is what we do, this is what we continue to develop each year through CPD and through courses. We always grow, and we are business people.
yes.
Wow, we work for ourselves, or
yeah, it's one of the reasons why every member gets that starter pack, so they can focus the business side of what they do
In a professional way.
It is understanding in very bullet point mindset, if you like, who am I, what is my business, and what is my message. And once any business can get those points down to 6 lines on each question, who am I, what's my business, what's my message, you've got 18 lines. It's going to take you 60 seconds to regurgitate. And it means that anybody that comes to you understands exactly who you are, what your business is, and why they should work with you. And it's the simplest and quickest and easiest promotion of any business build on the planet.
It is, and we're finding more and more people are doing this digitally, like the APA digital directory, because people do want to see you, they do want to hear their potential therapist. At the end of the day, they're going to end up paying a lot of money per hour. So on paper, what put me off as a potential client would be someone with a whole load of degrees, because straight away I'm not good enough, because you know, and I would feel that it would be a teacher pupil role, and that's a big no-no for me. I want someone to be sort of my level and just connect.
It's about that engagement, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think when we do talk on video, and I know people are not comfortable doing it for whatever reason, but I think it's a skill. I think it's something that we can teach the members, but I think it's crucial, because how I would sound on my video is how I'm going to sound like I am to you guys, and like I am in the room. So if you don't like what I sound like, if I sound like somebody from your childhood who you hated or bullied you, or if I look like that and have those mannerisms and those little gestures and that, if I make you feel inferior because of the transference, then that client, I'm not going to be the one for that client, and they've sort of saved their money. But it is also, it's professionalism. And I think why just being a counsellor doesn't make you like somebody who sits at home on fluffy bean bags with joss sticks and you know, is that what people think of us? Because if they think we're like that, they think we are just like a guru, you know, and cool, you know, but actually we're not. We are professional people, and that's the message. And when we all unite and as professional people, only then will the industry become more professional, but raise the standards, and then clients will actually recognize, oh, these guys, you know, they do know their stuff, they are qualified, they are business people, and they're worthy of that fee. Because again, there's still so much, well, we're a charity and we offer free counselling for anybody. So
and I think that perception of counselling is something that is done by charity or as charity has actually been counterproductive to human psychology, because human psychology is, I don't need charity, thank you very much. I get it. But it also means I don't want to take that therapist away from someone that needs it more than I do. So I'll cope, I'll keep going, and I'll kick my problems further down the road until I really need somebody to come in. Instead of actually dealing with releasing those pressure points, it's a bit like loading a time bomb. And the more the sector has kind of had this charity persona, and it goes against people's need to reach out for support.
I'm going to come in here because I'm very conscious that we're going over the hour and we're going down a road where we could be chatting, which there's not an issue with that, but it's really important to have some level of boundary, and we didn't set it at the beginning. We could have done, so we'll work on that one. It's my way of being very conscious of us trying to keep to a semblance of a boundary here, Helen, which we've just gone over. We'll work on
so she's trying to claw it back.
Yes, I am.
But I want to say thank you for your time anyway, and
he got in there before I finished my sentence. Because that's where I was going.
We're allowed to do that.
we certainly are, because we're equal and we're new in this relationship. Certainly as a therapist, I set agendas. I will set an agenda to structure the time and make sure that it's covered moving on, or put on the following session's agenda. But I think working towards the immediate objective of how best to use that time that we've got is something important, certainly in my counselling, life coaching, client work. But here with you guys, I could just sit and talk to all night anyway, because it's the mindset, isn't it? It's the same mindset.
And it's what we wanted to make Open Contact Thursday all about. The idea that one day a week we can have this open contact where people can kind of come and spend time with either of us or both of us together and have conversations. They don't have to be agendas. They don't have to be about a particular topic. It can just be a conversation and get to know that there is no reason with a membership body that there's some form of kind of chasm between the members and the executive. That it's counterproductive to have that, in my mind. And Open Contact Thursday is supposed to come to an end at 7 o'clock because we do need to kind of have some downtime. So I want to say thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us, because it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you as always. And the next kind of live contact, I think we're going to do a live check-in on social media on Friday.
Or Saturday.
Yeah, Friday or Saturday. We'll probably announce that later tonight. And just kind of be able to sort of let people know that just because the things with C19 are changing doesn't mean that we can't change too. We want to make sure that contact stays in place.
And at this point, Helen, I'm going to draw his mouth to a close. I'm going to wish you a lovely evening. I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us. It's very appreciated. And if you don't mind, we'll be sharing this particular conversation, because I think it's been a great conversation. It's great to have you on board, Helen. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Take care.
Super. And you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.